Okay. Hey, everybody. Good morning. I'm multitasking already. Um, hey, how was your weekend? Yeah, I was back there trying to figure out a few things. Tim Ray's calling because he just got off the show. Where's my link? Then, of course, um, Kim comes in and she's like, does my hair look okay? And then Jason, you know, I can't find any underwear to wear but Emily's. Do I need to know these things? I mean, really, people. Anyway, I am gonna just sit back today. I'm just kidding. None of that really happened. Um, and eat my fruit this morning, and drink my water, and help me welcome to the show, won't you please, my sidekick, as always, the ever-present, the ever-present, Lucy McGillicuddy Ricardo. And how was your weekend? Okay, good. So was mine. A lot of nice weather here in the Chicagoland area. I hope things were playful for you in your neck of the woods. With all the things going on, still partial lockdown, and then, of course, the reason we're all here today, all the different things going on with the protest, and all the things, so many different little, things flying through the atmosphere as far as all of this. The Floyd guy, and I know the Floyd guy, see, I said that to make you think, I don't know, I haven't heard anything. It's almost like that, if you know what I mean. And we have found that the buzzing, I have my computer back, by the way, from the Geek Squad, and the buzzing is only when my mic is open. So I'll be muting myself as our guest talk back and forth, aka, also known as Duke It Out. I'm just kidding. That's not going to happen. We're going to start singing Onward Christian Soldiers the moment someone gets ugly. You hear that, Jason? He's in the green room. So, seriously, on a serious note, thank you all for showing up. I was just stalling a little bit, waiting for people. Tim Ray just finished his show, Awake in Atlanta. He'll be here any minute. And we have Kevin Hoffman out there somewhere. He said, it says I'm in the, I don't know. I did, and it put me backstage. Hold on, you guys. There's something you're missing to do. You got to type your name in and then enter the broadcast. Go out and try over. I know what you people who are parents go through. And speaking of parents, before I start bringing in the guest, I want to tell you guys about something really, really beautiful. I posted it yesterday, and it came right when I was dealing with something. Oh, hi, something in the green room, also known as Jason, yesterday. And the timing was impeccable. It really helped me because I was following Jason's rule of, remember, no matter what, you're always the pilot of the plane. So if the plane is swerving or there's, the mask have popped down out of the ceiling, it's your job to stay calm so that the rest of the plane will calm down based on your example. So I was doing that when this happened. One of our neighbors who lives on another street, our doorbell rang, and I was out on the deck. Brian was being my wingman. Well, don't say that, honey. All that kind of stuff. And a woman named Mina was at our door with her 3 children and their dog. And she goes, Loren, a couple weeks ago, you probably don't remember, but we were on the other side of the street, and my little one here was on his balance bike, and you commented about how fearless he was. She goes, my husband and I really thought that it just did something for us. It was a great day. And anyway, and they came back, and they said, we want to get to know you better. And that's our goal this summer. They gave me this beautiful card. I'll just read a little bit of it because it kind of ties into what we're doing today. She says, Dear neighbor, I think it was only a couple weeks ago that you saw my 3-year-old coasting rapidly down your street on his balance bike. You kindly noted how fearless he was. It was such a friendly remark, and I appreciated it. Too many people pass each other by with little more than an acknowledgement of their presence, but you took it a step further than that. So today, our family wishes to advance one more pace with the simplest of neighborly gestures, to introduce ourselves. Perhaps it is in an especially critical time to do this, as we all stand to benefit from compassionate connections with others. Please know that we value getting to know you better, and we hope to do that yet this summer. And it was signed by their family. It was just a really beautiful thing, and so I just wanted to start today with that, so that as we move through today, no matter where it goes, we can remember that compassionate moves are the best moves of all. So thank you for that. That's the bell of purpose. And I don't know where Tim and what's his name are, but I'm going to go ahead and bring in our first 2 guests, and then I'll get on the horn and start bringing in these other 2. You like that?
You got some fancy stuff going on there, brother.
I know, right?
It's kicking butt, man.
Impressive, Loren.
Very impressive.
Thank you. Now I have to just continue to click myself on mute and off. So this is great though, because I didn't want to talk much anyway today. I wanted you to. So I'm going to mute myself. You guys, starting with ladies first. So Jason, kick things off. This is so delicious. I know.
Stop it, Loren.
I know. I can't help it. Anyway, I want you guys to introduce yourselves to the viewers, and then I'm going to go and check on Tim and Kevin. So go ahead.
So is that really Jason first? Or
No.
shall I go
No,
first?
you.
Okay. All right. My name is Kim Jorgensen Gain. I am, I don't know. I'm a free agent. I'm an activist for reproductive justice, especially, and the connection between reproductive justice, economic justice, and racial justice. Let's see. Well, I'm writing a book called Mother Feminist: Raising Ourselves and the Men We Fall For, which is tricky, very, very tricky, because I want to do that and still keep the relationships, that I value in my life. And so I'm still trying to work through that, but that's kind of my, that's enough for now.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Can I ask you guys a question real quick? Kevin says that when he comes in on the link, it says you are backstage, no one can see you, blah, blah, blah. You guys saw all that, didn't you?
Yeah.
Then what did you do?
Waiting for you to bring us in.
You have to bring, you have to bring us in.
Okay. Go ahead, Jason. And then Tim, good morning. Thank you for running off the set of Awaken Atlanta and then flying into Chicago so quickly. I don't know how you did it, but I'm glad you're here.
You got to open the back door for me, man.
Yeah. You're lucky this is Bathrobe Moments in Night After Dark, because I had a good one for that. So listen, I'm muting Tim because my side is making some kind of bad sound. So I'm going to mute so you guys are introducing yourselves while I get our next guest in. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tim. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Tim Ray, founder of the UI Media Network and United Intentions Foundation. And I'm here to entertain as well as hopefully share a little bit of information that I may have gathered over the years. We're all about the power of our intentions and uniting our intentions for good and for positivity, as well as conscious understanding of what we call conscious media, which is basically awareness, bringing awareness to looking up, seeing what's going around you, and not sticking our heads in the sand and pretending things aren't happening because we just want to feel positive. So we're really kind of bringing reality to positivity and moving us forward as a collective, as a soul collective, to wherever we're supposed to be going or want to be going. It's pretty much what we do here and what I do.
Awesome. I'm Jason Cisneros, and also known as the Bald Avenger, and I am an activist for personal responsibility, radical personal responsibility.
Wonderful.
Awesome. So we all know, I actually named this show today, Who is America? Because I thought that was a really great question to ask. And if you noticed, if any of you, or unless you blindly reposted the thing I tagged you in, the promo, or had your team of many people, I was going to say minions, didn't you? No, your team of many people to do it for you inside of that post, along with that question was, all lives matter, as a statement. And so I wanted us to remember that, and I just want to say to everybody, this is not meant, some people, this is not a Jerry Springer. We're not trying to, have people throwing things, including disrespectful comments and things like that. So, and that goes, I'm saying that to everyone, even those out there that are watching. Everybody has an entitlement to their own opinion, so that they can live their own best life. So that's what we're going for, hopefully to just share some insights. Kim, I know the reason I really was excited about you coming today was because you've been out there and a part of several protests, and I just want to know what it felt like, what kind of sidebars you had with people that were there, were there any surprises, things like that. And then Tim, you always seem to have everything but an alien, and you probably had a couple of those on your show. They just look so real that they fooled us all. You could be one yourself for all I know. And then Jason, of course, because every great show has to have the shit starter. I mean the rebel rouser, the disruptor, and so that's why you're here. And then Kevin, of course, is coming if he can ever find his way in, because Kevin is the real life version of Randall from the show This Is Us. A biracial baby born into a white family, and then living in a black neighborhood, then living in a white neighborhood, and all that goes with it. And he speaks to universities all over the country on this subject of diversity and inclusion. So he's been doing this and preaching this all along. So it wasn't
I
just
don't
this.
feel so ganged up on now.
Yes.
Hi,
So then.
Kevin. Thank you for
Oh,
being
whatever.
here.
Oh, and then when you said, I don't feel so ganged up, and then I could see Jason's face say, quit your whining. So anyway.
And Kevin has to be all good looking like that. Okay, great.
Yes,
Fantastic.
mixed babies always turn out like that. Kevin, can you hear everybody?
Yes.
Okay, Kevin, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tim, did you introduce yourself? Okay, and then I have something to read real quick, and then we'll set you loose.
Tim Ray, how the heck are you?
Kevin, good seeing you, man.
Why not? Hey, so my name is Kevin Hoffman, and I work in the area of diversity and inclusion. Interesting point of my backstory is I was born 53 years ago in the summer of 1967, the riots in Detroit. I was born in Detroit. My life started in the shadows of a city that was on fire. And the frustrating thing about this whole process is 53 years later, we're still having the same conversation. That riot in Detroit started because of police brutality. In 2020, we are protesting and rioting for the same reasons. Not much has happened in 53 years.
Probably went backwards.
Yeah, exactly. You did.
Okay, so thank you for that, Kevin. Really quickly, because I don't want to mess up the sound with whatever I have going on, my own personal problems. So I just want something I have written out here that I wanted to make sure I got it right. So I just want to say this, and then I want you to go ahead and I thought a great way to do this is I've got some photos of things, and I'm gonna click it on the screen when I finish reading this one at a time. And I'd like you all to just discuss what it means to you and what do you feel when you see this photo. So first I'm going to say, as America took to the streets to protest George Floyd's killing and police brutality nationwide, there were also smaller U.S. cities which started their own conversations with no less life and death urgency than in Minneapolis or Detroit. So let's get that clear. This is all over, small, large, and in between. So these may be calm, silent, tumultuous, or contentious conversations outside major metros, but they all share something in common. Black Americans who say conditions have not been and are no longer tenable for everyday living. Basically, that's what it is. I've talked to my family, I've talked to my friends, and I've talked to myself. So from that viewpoint, I get it. And I'm just going to say this, Kim, you know how this is a sensitive issue for me because it was not so many years ago that I was in front of a jury fighting for my life, 45 years for something that a white man made up and said because you're black and you're in this community, they're going to believe me and they're not going to believe you. I went to school with the prosecutor. I'm friends with the sheriff. I can make it happen, and I'll be damned if he didn't try.
Yep.
So I came this close.
Much like Amy Cooper recently in the park.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was. And so I just want to say,
next to Brian on that bench in the gallery, holding him, feeling him shake, because your future with the love of your life was at stake.
At stake, and just my future period, I would have died there.
Yeah.
Period. I would have died there. And I mean, I'll never forget that moment. It didn't matter that I had heard 5 not guilties. It was that 6th one. Because if it hadn't been 6, it would have been the same thing. And so I just want to say, it's not, I thank God I wasn't killed or beaten, but my spirit was, or at least it tried to kill my spirit, and it did beat me up a little bit, but I'm back and I'm going to stay up. So I just want to say that that's why this is so important to me. Not just, from, okay, let's see what's happening. So anyway, moving on. How will things improve? That's what we're here for. Beyond the endless, sleepless, things going on in our lives, the drumbeat of LA, New York, smaller cities like Savannah, Georgia, Erie, Pennsylvania, Greenville, South Carolina. These places are all grappling with existential questions. Where racism is blanketed by the relative calm of a quieter way of life, how does the urgent need for equality find a voice? Who will listen to it, and how will people's lives truly change? What does protesting look like near and far when a sudden seismic upheaval sends tremors throughout an entire nation? So that's what I want us to talk about. Our first picture on there today, up on the screen, is this one. Can anyone tell me who that is?
Emmett Till.
Emmett Till.
Exactly. It was Emmett Till, who was a 14-year-old African American boy visiting family in Money, Mississippi. Emmett died on August 28th, 1955, 65 years ago. Less than 1 month later, an all-white jury found that the two men who were responsible for killing him, they deemed them not guilty. Then within 1 year after that acquittal, because of the double jeopardy law, the two came out to Look magazine admitting that they indeed had killed Emmett Till. So I'm going to let you guys go with it. Just raise your hand when you're ready to speak and go across so I don't have to keep opening and closing the mic. And tell me how that makes you feel and how is that still relevant today?
Do you want me to start? Okay. So Emmett Till's mother demanded that his casket be open for his funeral or viewing, or so that everyone could see what was done to him. She wasn't going to have this closed casket. And mothers, particularly, and women have been fighting for equality, but not in partnership so well with women of color and Black women particularly. And when I see that picture, when I see George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, that shakes me to my core, because he was hunted down, and that was a modern day lynching in broad daylight. I think the first, I didn't grow up learning Black history, but Black history is our history.
Mm-hmm.
These are things that I'm, awakening to, and I am awakening to the fact that our empathy has been squeezed out of us, particularly as white women. I think we are complicit in the patriarchy and in white male supremacy because of our desire to maintain our own way of life and our own feelings of being safe. And because I was taught my whole life to fear Black men, particularly. But I will tell you, I have never once been harmed by a Black man. I have been harmed repeatedly by white men.
Okay, thank you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it to 2.5 minutes so that we get through everybody and get through most of the pictures. So I'm going to move over to Jason now. Jason, Emmett Till, what does that mean to you? Did you learn about him? I heard the name come out of your mouth instantaneously. And is there any tie-in with that photo for you to today's happenings?
Yeah, there's horrifying things that happen throughout history that change the direction that we address humanity. And Emmett Till is a great example of what Kim just said, as to leave the casket open, see what you have done. Mm-hmm. Right. And then you can just start to address the problem that is. And when I look at, how that relates to today, you look at this situation with George Floyd, which I think, you had unanimous 300 million people in this country looked at that and said, that's wrong. You know, that instantaneously anybody that didn't is an asshole, because you can look at that situation and go, you know, that's not right. And when you look at what happened with Emmett Till, that sparked a new direction, right? And then you've got Martin Luther King that came after, that was fighting for our rights. And as a kid, listening to MLK, and I've memorized that speech. Like, I could probably give it word for word. I've looked at all of the different things that were happening during that period of time, because I looked at myself as I was coming up as poor, disaffected, you know, in gangs, you know, being stabbed, being thrown in jail, being targeted because of the neighborhoods that I lived in, and going through that entire situation, and then looking at what that led into with MLK, which you can go through his I Have a Dream speech and see that about, you know, almost all of his I Have a Dream speech has come true for the Black community these days. The things that existed back then don't exist as much as they do now. And I feel like we have gotten into a society that has gotten so bored because we've had so little conflict that we get upset about everything, and we start to manufacture things to be upset about, instead of what again, when I started the show, I'm for radical personal responsibility. And that's the only way that things change, in my opinion.
Awesome. You were right on the money with your timing. Okay, Jason. Why don't we pop over? I know. I'm gonna pop over. I'm gonna save my the one. I'm gonna have to play the wrap up music. Dun 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 dun. I'm gonna have to play the wrap up music on Tim. I already know. So I'm gonna go to Kevin first. So Kevin, Emmett Till. What about you? And I also want to say, speak from the place of the guy who, instead of having a stork on the yard saying "Welcome, baby Kevin," they burned a cross on your family's yard when they brought you home from the hospital. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, so when I see the picture of Emmett Till, it just makes me tired. Quite honestly, Ahmaud Arbery is today's Emmett Till.
Yeah.
So I don't think we've changed much. We do a whole lot of action around things. And let me correct the misnomer that these riots and protests are about George Floyd. They are and they aren't. They're about Emmett Till, Rodney King, Renisha McBride, Trayvon Martin, Sandra Boyd, Tamir Rice, Eric Gardner, Breonna Taylor, John Crawford, and Oscar Grant. These are people that came to a tragic end because someone thought they were dangerous.
And they were just the ones that we heard about.
Yes, and they were just the ones that are heard about. It's interesting that the civil rights movement exploded because of TV. Mm-hmm. For the first time, you were seeing what we had been saying for years. We are being mistreated. Please help us. And what we got was pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You need to do better. Your community is a piece of crap. Do better. And so now you're seeing people in the streets. MLK said, riots are the voice of the unheard. We whispered when they killed 12-year-old Tamir Rice in a park because he was playing with a gun. The police rolled up on him and within 2 minutes, 2 seconds, gave him an order and shot him dead. And then everybody wanted to say, well, no, we thought he was 18. We thought he was older. And everyone wants to give us excuses as to why this is justifiable. You know, George Floyd was a criminal. You know, you've heard a lot about that. What does his criminal background have to do with the fact that he was unjustly killed? It has nothing to do with that. The state of the Black community and why Black people are killing each other, that the misnomer is that Black on Black crime is way out of control. It's not. Quite honestly, criminals are lazy. They go to the guy next door and rob him or kill him. So because the United States is so splintered and we're all in our silos, yeah, Black on Black crime is the thing. So is white on white crime, but no one talks about that. So it's just these years, over 50 years of frustration that you're seeing. So don't get it twisted. It's not just about George Floyd. It's about all those people I named, and then the people there were no cell phones around to record.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. It's the collective story. I hear you saying. I hear you saying. And Tim Ray, Emmett Till, what's that do for you?
Well, I mean, it's hatred. It's pretty obvious. And hatred begets hatred. And I think that's kind of where we are right now. I could sense hatred and anger in Kevin, frustration. I could see why and understand why, because you're right. What has changed? What has changed since Tillman, Kevin? You know, what has changed since Tillman? What has changed, right? So I mean, I can see the frustration levels there, where it's to the point where people are like, well, you know, here it is. We're just going to amplify it more. We're going to burn down. We're going to riot and the sad part about all of this, what's happening today compared to perhaps what happened in the past, is it's been hijacked. It's not even, people aren't even rioting for Floyd or rioting for anybody else of all the folks you just mentioned. It's not. It's been a planned riot. The George Soros, who's using the black people, using them every day and spending money on these white little punks who go out, start the riots, and then they blame it on the black people for doing the rioting, or to the certain degree. And then and every society and every culture has their own ethics and own integrity. And within that, you can have certain people in the black culture who don't have as much integrity as the next person, who's going to go in and going to amplify the riot, who's going to steal the sneakers and steal all the clothes, who's going to go in and take advantage of the circumstances that's being set up by a George Soros, who is not there because he cares about the black people. And this guy is a Nazi collaborator. He was a Jew back in Germany who would sell out his own Jewish friends who would be tortured and murdered. You know, this guy doesn't have a conscience. And all of a sudden, a lot of these folks he's paying money. They all think he's this great hero for the movement of justice and for equality. It's a bunch of lies, and it's in such big lies that's the story now. Not the fact that of the Tillmans of the world who have been misjustified, but it's the fact that now this gentleman who's running for the Rothschilds, he's a puppet for them to take over this new world order agenda, using the black community to move forward what they're ultimately want: suppression, repression, and dominance over surveillance over everybody, not just the black community, but over everybody in the world. And that's what we're experiencing right now. Unfortunately, it's been taken away. I know this takes away from the whole movement of what Kevin and even Kim's talking about, and Jason. It's a reality we got to deal with, and a reality we got to look at. And I believe that as we go forward in riots, not protests, but in riots, it's just going to be a backlash against the people who are being set up.
I appreciate that you said that, Tim, because that was something that I wanted to be really clear about today, is that there is a big difference. Those are three very individual things: protesting, rioting, and looting. Those are very different things.
And all three are occurring at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. Very nice. Nicely done. Great. I encourage all of you out there watching to hit the share button, start a watch party, or just invite a friend or two. The conversation is what we need to have, and that's what we're trying to get started here today. Here is the picture that is next. It is David Dorn, police chief, former police chief. We all know the story, maybe not, but we're going to find out. So I want you all to think about that. And we're going to take a break real quick, just about 15 seconds, 20 seconds. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Good morning, everybody. It's the Monday edition of Bathrobe Moments, and I'm your host, Loren Michaels Harris. On the screen, we have with us today, trying to speak to the question, who is America? Jason Cisneros, Kim Jorgensen-Gain, Tim Ray, and Kevin Hoffman. Before we went to break, I posted this picture, which is David Dorn, and so I'm going to ask the same question. We're going to go in reverse this time, starting with Tim Ray. Tim, when you see this picture, what's it mean to you?
David Dorn, if I recall, was St. Louis. He killed a police captain. A black man killed a police captain.
So this is very important to me. This man is incredibly important. He's retired Captain David Dorn, 50 plus years as a police captain, and just lived an impeccable life, and then ended up getting killed in a riot, right? In these riots. Yeah. And nobody, not a whisper of him, not a whisper. This shows the hypocrisy, right? And it goes in phases. You got 300 million people that were outraged by what they saw happen to George Floyd. And then it got hijacked by people that were trying to start these fights, like Tim was saying. And then that ends up affecting and impacting and killing a honorable black man that was killed by another black man that was robbing a store and stealing stuff, and he was standing in the way. He's a retired guy, and he went to protect his friend's property, and he gets murdered, and Black Lives Matters says shit about it. And that's when you start to lose your solidarity. Gets lost in hypocrisy.
Now, Jason, David Dorn is actually your profile picture on Facebook right now, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I should have started with you because I knew that.
No, I didn't mean to jump in on you.
No, but I should have started with you because a lot of people, as you saw, it kind of started off like, well, I think I know who he is.
Exactly.
And that's why.
There should be a riot or there should be protests, and there's a difference between peaceful protesters that are not tearing shit down and not like, what is somebody taking a 50-inch television screen for themselves have to do with justice? It doesn't have shit to do with it.
You know, it's flipped, Jason and gang. It's flipped because back in the day, the mainstream media would be pushing, it's black crime on a white woman, you know, and they would play it up as much as possible. And now it's flipped where the mainstream media won't say anything to do with black crime on black crime. It has to be more racially charged.
It has to be, and those, you know, and Kevin, you know, I apologize about interaction, brother. I'm you know, we got into it a little bit online, and I took something maybe out of context that he said, and you know, did what I do, which is lose my temper, and I apologize for that. But at the end of the day, you know, when you're looking at one of the things Kevin said was it's a tired old argument that black on black crime, when, you know, you look back to last year, 7,000 you know, deaths. And only like, I think it was 9 of them was police interaction, unarmed police interaction. Right. But we don't talk about those other things. And that's not literally the point here. My point is that we're celebrating George Floyd. And this is part of the point. We're celebrating George Floyd. And I know that it's not about him anymore. Like the riots and all this other kind of stuff. It's all agendas. Right. It's all agendas, and we need to see through that. But I got furious, and where I got lost in the entire thing was when you have Captain David Dorn, who lived an impeccable life of service, and is murdered literally by the thing that is supposed to bring justice. I got mad and I got upset, and that's where this whole thing took off.
And I want to just say right here, because when we started, I asked Jason about his hat. About the thin blue line and Blue Lives Matter. And I think it's important when we see David Dorn's face that we remember when they say Blue Lives Matter, that includes thousands and hundreds of thousands of officers of color that go out and risk their lives every single day for all people.
And as an institution, there has been nobody that has put their lives on the line more to prove that Black Lives Matter than the police.
So I think it was important for us to speak and honor the memory of David Dorn.
Thank you for doing that, Loren. I appreciate it.
And all the other fallen officers, of course. I mean, I'm the person who learned the hard way. You know, when, Kim, you might remember, when I was exonerated, the newspaper called me before I could even get off the courtroom steps, wanting a statement. And I refused to give them an entire interview, but I did tell them this, because they were asking for me to respond to how I felt about the racial divide. And I said about how did it feel having a group of jurors that were not your peers? And I said, well, actually, they were my peers. because I'm exonerated. I'd rather have 12 people who know what the silent sound or the, truth has a ring to it. They all knew the ring of truth. And so they were my peers because it didn't take color to hear the truth. It just took someone looking for the truth.
The system exonerated you.
It did. And
but
no one expected
Loren.
it. But it wasn't.
Color.
It did.
Us all sitting there.
Well, it did, but white is considered lack of.
Yeah.
Absence of color.
Right.
In the way we use the term.
Right.
But if there were 21 supporters on my side of the courtroom, and the accuser was over by himself. He didn't even stay the full day, the second day of the trial. And all of my people got kicked out because got kicked out because they laughed when they said there's no such thing in this community as racial divide, and they all laughed, and the judge stood up and kicked them out.
Yeah.
So I mean,
out. I think that saved your ass more than anything.
Well, I think it was a combination. It was a divine experience because I was supposed to be here, and nothing was going to stop it.
You were innocent, and the system that we hammer down on found you innocent,
right,
by a jury of your peers who happened to be also white.
All white. And I thought it was doomsday because one person of color after the next just kept getting recused. And but it's not how it starts.
It's because only assholes make decisions based on the pigmentation of somebody's skin.
Well, this is true. Next one. First of all, does anyone else want to say something about Mr. Dorn?
I do.
Okay, go ahead. Minute and a half.
Go ahead. I sadly was not familiar with who that was, but and I also want to say that I have a little brother who is a police officer in Cleveland, and my husband is a former police officer. He was a firefighter, paramedic, police officer. So I am very much in I can't put myself in one box or the other box. I can't pick between the police or Black lives because I can see I have lives in my life that are truly important to me.
There's no separation. That's why.
Right. But you can't look at what happened with him without also looking at what happened with Breonna Taylor, where a no-knock warrant was executed, and it was at the wrong house, and she died in her bed.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here because, yes, we hear all the things that went wrong with each one of those names that Kevin listed and all of the ones that weren't listed. But I get it. But it does not negate the fact that David Dorn's story is just as important. Who's standing up for him? I mean, if we're looking for answers are steeped in balance.
Yeah.
Because the truth is the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And David's story is also the truth.
The facts of Breonna Taylor's case, I don't know if anybody's actually looked into it. To her case, she was not the target and was caught up in some crossfire because of some other criminal activity. That was an accident. That wasn't a targeted police going to murder. And none of these things are. Like you don't start out with police hunting down Black men in the streets. It doesn't happen.
It does happen.
As a Black man, it feels like it does.
Yeah.
I understand. It's because here, look, at the end of the day, what I want to do is I want to have a conversation that adds value to the conversation or to the solutions. And when we think about it, where there's last year, you've got 44 million Black brothers and sisters. You have 9 of them that got killed in unarmed interactions with the police, 24 white people, and you have over 50 cops that died. Like, none of those deaths are necessary, right? None of those deaths are necessary if people could handle their own shit and be personally responsible, not be breaking the law, not be putting yourself in situations where we need this stuff. We're talking about defund the police. You know who's going to suffer the most in that scenario is going to be communities of color.
Law-abiding citizens.
I can't believe that's even on the table. Now, what I would say, not so much defund the police, I would talk about defunding the counties making money off of the police doing their actions. I think that is a reasonable thing to look at, because we should never pay any servants who's supposed to be looking over for the best and the safety of their constituents, of the citizens, and then taking money from those same citizens. Whether it's speeding tickets, whether it's being going down, running through a red light, whatever it may be. That has to stop. And I think when you stop that, where the police departments are making money off the citizens, you will find a police department that's much more engaging and much more friendly to the citizens when they're not. And that public money should be given to the public to pay the police officers' salaries, not the police making the money off of the citizens who they're trying to protect. To me, that's
100%. And by the way, trying to protect, right? Over 1 million violent crime interactions. Over 1 million violent crime interactions. And I'm not even going to say color. I'm not, because it doesn't matter. These are not, they're not going into churches and pulling out innocent people that are doing nothing. They're not going into a restaurant where somebody's eating a sandwich and pulling them out and killing them. This is not happening. There's 1 million violent crime interactions. And when you look at the white and the black together, 30 or so, unarmed deaths, and plus 50 or 60 police officers dying. They're doing a good job, y'all.
Hey, Loren, I don't know if you have a picture or not, but I like to hear Kevin's or Kim's perspective on Candace Owen. She's pretty much out in the public right now, saying a lot of things that a lot of people in the Black community don't want to hear, and I'm kind of curious to what their perspective is.
I want to address the defunding thing first, because when we get stuck in our divisions, we're not talking about the roots of problems. You want to talk about defunding police versus not defunding police. Let's talk about funding single moms. Let's talk about the fact that someone who is, say, a server waiting tables, right now, those people are getting unemployment based on their base salary of $3.25 an hour. They don't get unemployment that includes tips. That's one, for instance. So when they go on maternity leave, if they're not working, they make nothing.
They're making nothing now. All the restaurants and all those places have been shut down.
Right.
And not because it's a black or white thing, but it's because this is a New World Order thing.
Well, and why are they single? Why are they single moms?
My turn. Yeah. We are in a global pandemic right now.
No, we're not in a pandemic. It's not a pandemic.
My turn. Yeah.
All right.
My turn.
Just trying to spice it up a little bit.
Okay, but can I finish, please?
Please.
My dog groomer, if she doesn't groom dogs, she doesn't work. She's what's considered a micro business. When all of this started, she had been on maternity leave this winter. This is her second maternity leave in a couple of years. Brutally short 5-week maternity leaves. There is no mechanism for her to be paid while she's on maternity leave. Because of when her maternity leave fell, she didn't qualify for any small business assistance. She didn't qualify for any assistance until the last incentive, or the last initiative through Congress. So we strategically have disinvested in and disenfranchised communities of color. We disinvest in the schools. We have disenfranchised voters of color. Look at Loren's case in particular. Why did he have no black jurors? Because that's based on who's registered to vote, because people are working while we vote and don't have access, don't have knowledge. We're barely teaching civics in school. People are not engaged because of the division, because it's like, well, I don't know what to believe. So I'm just going to do nothing.
Okay. Tim?
I yield my time.
Yes, thank you, madam.
Thank you, Senator.
I wanna move ahead a little bit here. We know that this was gonna feel like
Can we hear from Kevin just a little bit, just because I want to on Captain David Dorn in this whole situation.
Yes,
I really am interested.
Then we have another photo to put up. Go ahead, Kev.
So Captain David Dorn is an unfortunate result of what's going on in the world. What frustrates me is that happens, and then everyone runs to Black Lives Matters and says, see, you're not saying anything. You're not doing anything. That's like going into Home Depot and being pissed because you can't buy milk. That's not Home Depot's mission. Black Lives Matter's mission is to hit police brutality. That's it. So when you go to them and say, well, how come you're not addressing black on black crime? Because that ain't their mission. They're not the end all be all for the black community. Now, I will say the frustrating thing for me is, where is the black leadership? We don't have people like Martin Luther King. But let me say this, because everyone's memory about Martin Luther King has changed. Today's Martin Luther King is Kyle Kaepernick. They despise Martin Luther King just as much, if not more, than Kaepernick. But throughout history, everyone's changed with their view of Martin Luther King. And now he's this great, peaceful guy. And so everyone wants to quote the I Have a Dream speech. There's a note. He's done more speeches. And so we need better leadership. I will say that and admit to that. But we're throwing in all this stuff that really has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter and why they're out there protesting. And there are issues in the black community. I get that. But it doesn't help. So here's the deal. I'm just asking you to be compassionate. And Tim, when you said, I was angry, I'm not angry. I'm just passionate about this. Because I have two sons that I want to come home. I selfishly want them to come home every day. And so my fear is today the day my child will come up against a police officer that has been trained for our country's history to see him as a threat, even though he might not be. And if you go into a situation thinking it's going to go one way, you handle that situation totally different.
Kevin,
so,
I understand that fear. Right? I understand that fear. I'm just saying that there's a greater fear going on right now than the fear whether another white cop's going to kill your sons. I think the fear is whether they're going to have a world of enslavement across the board. I think that should be the number one focus. I understand Black Lives Matters has their own agenda and is limited to
incarceration.
So as a member of the black community, Kyle Kaepernick started this several years ago, and he simply knelt on a football field. And then everybody said, no. We don't want you doing it that way. And so then we marched, and people were like, no. Can't do it that way. And so part of this is we're not going to do it the way you want us to, because we've tried that. And what has that gotten us? It's gotten us Emmett Till after Emmett Till after Emmett Till.
It's gotten a declining negative interaction with the police force that is almost through the floor, that is almost non-existent. Like this is
That's not my experience.
Well, it's not my experience. I've been arrested more than you, I promise you. And at the end of the day, it was because I was putting myself in environments to be arrested. And I'm part black, I'm part Spanish, I'm part Samoan, I'm part Native American, I'm part all of these things. And at the end of the day, I'm being judged because I can't have the experience because I have white skin.
But Jason, you're not
saying that. What I'm saying is, what if you're not doing anything and the police officer that sees you, his implicit bias is showing him something that's not there. And so he comes at you left and center, because he's thinking you're dangerous. I'm not dangerous. I'm just walking down the street.
I was dangerous. I was dangerous. I had weapons on me. I had an ill intent in my heart. I was breaking the law.
Saying the opposite of what I'm saying.
Okay.
What I'm
gonna
saying is
just
there are people out there that are innocently walking through life. And our experience is that we feel targeted. And so how do we bridge that divide?
So when you feel something and the facts point out something else, what do we do? This
Your
is the
facts
disagreement.
point out something else. If we see the world from different views, whose view is right? The most frustrating thing about this talk on racism is because you don't experience life as I do, my experience gets dismissed. I can't tell you the anxiety, the PTSD that I get when there's a police car behind me.
You know, I feel the same way. My
I think
heart
the
rate
majority
starts
of
racing.
people-
I
I'm
start
saying you
sweating.
don't. I'm not saying you don't.
I think
Let me just jump in. I want to say that this is all true, and it's leading into the final question, so I'm glad that we went there. I will say this. I know as a black man, darker than anyone on this screen, that when I drove a hoopty, if I got pulled over, I would be pulled over with no less than 2 police cars behind me. If it was a signal infraction or whatever, it took an average of 35 minutes to an hour to get away from there. The first day I bought that green car I had, Kim, right, that Ford, Jesse Chabot, prominent person in St. Joe, owner of Splash Photography, right there dead center town, was in the car with me. She threw her gum out the window, and they pulled us over, and there were 3 police cars there just like that. But I've also experienced, since I don't drive an old car anymore, and I drive a luxury car that is new, if I do get pulled over, I'm released within 10 minutes, and I'm released with a warning. Most of the time. Most of the time. I can't remember having a traffic ticket in this new world of mine. So I'm just going to say that. I don't know what it means. But what I do want to say as we round up, we have one more picture I want to throw up, is this. David Dorn is proof that there are great cops in every color, every shape, every size. There are bad cops of every color, of every shape, of every size. There are victims that are on that list and ones who aren't on that list. Some who shouldn't have ended the way because they were innocent, but maybe they were in a place they couldn't do anything about. They live in the hood, or they live where stray bullets or whatever it is. They visited a park that they know is known for that kind of stuff. In Benton Harbor, we knew, keep your ass away from Union Park. Day, night, whenever. Don't go there. That was the first thing my birth mother told me when I moved in her house. There's a park a few blocks over. Stay the hell away from it. Don't even drive past it. It could cost you your life. So that's it. I mean, some people pay for other people's mistakes. Some people don't pay at all for their own stuff. And then there are those of us who are on the outside looking in. All I want to reiterate here is that the list of victims is a list of victims. If we were to take everybody who died senselessly that did not deserve it, and laid them out side by side on a football field and covered them up with sheets, would it matter during the body count who they were, how they got there? What would matter is, good Lord, look at all these casualties.
Racism, Loren's an inside job. It'll never get resolved, and not on this conversation, but until we see it as an inside job, it will continue, and it will continue to grow and grow and grow.
Last photo, and I'd like each of you to close out by saying, what do you feel this represents, what you see this person doing? Should they be doing it? What should we take away from it? That is, of course, George Floyd being memorialized in a big, big way. How does that make you feel? Is this a good thing? Is this not a good thing? How does it make you feel? We'll start with Tim.
You know, I have multiple perspectives on it. One from a black perspective, seeing the injustice done of a white officer killing the man, the Floyd, being memorialized. I think it's healthy to keep that in the society's eyes, to see, hey, you know what, this could happen to you, you know. At the same time, I also see this as a 9/11, you know, whether the Floyd situation was another setup, which a lot of people are talking about and discussing, and time will tell what was happening. Does it take away from the mission of, say, Black Lives Matter or whatever the group may be supporting this type of moralization of him? I don't know if that's relevant or not, but I do know there's a much bigger issue going on than Black Lives Matters. And I think that if we get caught up into that issue, I think it's important to them, but I think that the Black culture will be the first culture that'll be probably vaccinated with the RFID chip. And because a lot of times they're not aware of the overall situation we're moving in reference to the New World Order. And it's not going to care about color at that point. It's just going to care about manipulation and frequency manipulation of everyone, of all humans. And I think that if we have to really start looking at issues that are coming down the road, we need to look at this bigger picture that's going to affect every race and not just one. I know you set the conversation up for that perspective, Loren, but all I can tell you guys, the Floyd situation is going to be minuscule to what's coming down on a level of surveillance and dominance on a worldwide level, we never even imagined before. So I think we need to start raising the conversation to prepare ourselves for that, to bring that and use Floyd as a way, and I think it is being used as a way to understand the connection between the George Soroses and the connection between the Rothschilds and connection between all these folks who really are manipulating man and womankind right now. And they're about to play their hand. It's being played in the last 3 months. And I think that's where we're going to end up anyway. So we might get there sooner than later, is my perspective.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Kim, let's go to you.
So, heartbroken, obviously. The look on Chauvin's face is devastating. The hate that is so apparent on his face. There is a part of me that feels guilty because of what I didn't know. My first time voting was in 1984, and I voted for Ronald Reagan because that's who my dad was voting for. I did not understand the connection between the way that I voted and the way we live our daily lives. In 1987, I had my daughter alone. As a white girl growing up in St. Joe, next to Benton Harbor, which is, you know, St. Joe, white and affluent, around 90% white. Benton Harbor, socioeconomically depressed and around 90% Black, next to Ronald Reagan's welfare queen's narrative. So for me to ask for help, I was suicidal as a young single mom because I couldn't ask for help because I couldn't be compared with the welfare queens. But I was living that life. I was experiencing, I never got any child support. So the way that Ronald Reagan and the conservative movement shifted everything in America, and the lack of access to reproductive health care, including abortion care, absolutely is a factor in people not being able to control our lives and not being able to choose for ourselves when and whether to have children. You know, have we gotten our education? So there is a lot more that I could talk about on that, but what I want to leave us with for my white friends who wish to be allies in the Black community. You know, Jason, you were targeted for cause by the police. Many people in the Black community are targeted with zero cause, except for their skin color. And what I want my white friends who wish to be allies, what I want to leave them with is, don't feel guilty, feel motivated. Feel motivated to where you have power, because we are the people who generally have the power, Black men or white men in particular. where we have power, we need to flip the script, and we need to think about how we can grant access equitably. I have a friend in Detroit, Cassie Jones McBride. She is starting an initiative with Planned Parenthood called Stand with Black Women. She's the Black community organizer for Planned Parenthood in Detroit. And she said to me, people are thriving. They just need access. They need access to education. They need access to jobs. We've had JCPenney, Target, Carson, Rite Aid, and others closed in St. Joe Benton Harbor. And those were some of the most diverse employers we had. So, and then you look at Michigan, we have no public transportation in Michigan.
I'm sorry, but we have to wrap it up. And I already know. Even though you don't have your megaphone with you today, you're right. So anyway, okay, great. Thank you, Kim.
Feel motivated.
Well, we'll get you back so that we can go into some of these things further, perhaps on an After Dark issue, one of our After Dark shows. How's that? And then now I want to go to Jason.
What was the question again? I got lost.
It was this photo.
Oh, what do I see?
Yeah.
I see a giant missed opportunity. And I think that we had the entire country that could have had a possible, could have had a really great discussion. And then we burned innocent people's shit. We slashed innocent police officers' throats. We killed Captain David Dorn. We burned buildings in our own neighborhoods. We had people traveling around on buses to burn people's shit so we would fight with each other. And on a lot of different fronts, where people were like, where it became well, you white people don't understand, and us white people going, oh my God, I need to flog myself because of guilt. And then, when we do try to speak up, you're not black, so you can't talk. Well, fine, I'll shut the fuck up. Fine, I'll shut the fuck up. And you lose that potential ally that Kim's talking about, because I'm busy. You know what I mean? When we're out rescuing and doing undercover rescues of little girls and little boys in the sex trade, bunch of white dudes with me rescuing children of color. When we're putting teeth back in women's faces that have been beaten by their significant other, those are women of color. When we're feeding people around the world, right, that every 4 seconds somebody's dying of hunger, those are people of color. And there's a lot of white people around me, and there was a lot of white people in support of MLK, and there was a lot of white support. There is a lot of white support for George Floyd and his situation. And the more racial we make this, the more the opportunity is lost for us to ever do anything. Nobody, honestly, I think Kevin and Kim and Tim and Loren, I think all of us would like to figure out, what is it that we do? What is it that you want me to do? Shut up because I'm white, or get involved because I'm white? I'm not going to feel guilty because I'm white. So all I know how to do is get in the fucking fight. And that's where I spend my money. That's where I spend my time. And I lay my life on the one situation that I had that changed my life forever was a little 7-year-old black girl that had handcuff marks on her thing that we had to go in and bust out of there. You know what? And she was put there that by her black community, sold off by her black mom, and rescued and pulled out of there by white people that loved her without even knowing her, and then put her into a aftercare program that was filled with white people. This isn't a color issue. It's a poverty issue, right? And we need to tell and teach young black men, black Hispanic or Hispanics, white. We need to figure out how to teach them how to be proud of who they are and how to make money, how to interact in a civilized society, so that we can rise together. That's where I spend my time. I don't know what else to do, and feeling guilty about it is not going to do anything to help the situation.
Absolutely right. When one wins, we all win.
We all win.
And that's the mindset. Kevin?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot I could say. Seeing the picture of George Floyd, it just makes me sad. Like, man, we're still dealing with this. And I have to disagree. I think it is about race. So what we do is we go, we don't want to talk about race. Let's talk about this. Well, until we address this whole issue of race and racism, we'll be here. We'll be here over and over again. I mean, it's like clockwork. You can set your watch to riots and insurrection.
Every 4 years.
1967, it happened. In 1993, Rodney King. In 2014, it was a Ferguson. Almost every 20 to 25 years. The scary thing is it's becoming more popular. It's becoming more, it keeps coming at a faster rate. And that's telling you that people have had enough. So everyone always asks me, I'm a white person, what do I do? And I think this is really hard for white people because you're used to being in charge. And so sometimes we're just asking you, just show us that you care. Just show up. Go to those protests with us. And here's the hard thing for some. A lot of people say, well, I'm afraid to say the wrong thing. So how about you show up? Just show up. You don't have to say anything. Just show us that you support the fact that we feel we are being hunted and that's not right. And I think that's where it starts. And then we can have all these other conversations. And that's where I want to get, where we make true change. I will say this. Everything that's happening recently it's notched way up. And what I'm encouraged by is that this seems a whole lot different than Rodney King or Ferguson. And I think true change will come from this. And it's kind of like a marriage. You know, you can have these horrible fights with your spouse, but all that does is kind of bring the stuff up to the surface. And if you address it, that marriage is so much better afterwards. And I think that's what we got to do. And just hear us. This whole conversation is about a people who feel unheard. And so when we say, can you understand I hurt? Because George is almost like a brother to me. I didn't know him, but our community sees it like that. So that when I say I'm hurting, and man, I don't know what to do with this anger, and sometimes that means I got to go out and just go nuts. Understand that comes from a place of hurt. And if you respond to that hurt by telling you shouldn't do that, it only adds to the hurt. So we need you to show up. We don't have the numbers to do it ourselves. We need you to be by us. But it may mean you don't get to be the front line, the guy on the front line. We need you by us. That's it. Just show up.
Great. And I agree with that, and I'll wrap it up here by saying this. You know, I had all of you are very special people in my life for very special reasons. And I just want to say, as a person who has literally lived this experience, because it was still involving either I was going to have a life or I was going to lose my life. And I will say this, it always boils down to choice. And after the fact, when things were finished and it had gone my way, I had a choice. I had a choice if I wanted to hate what had happened to me, what someone had tried to do, or I had a choice whether I wanted to look at how it was foiled. Who was responsible? Who were all the people that came? And I have to say, yeah, it was a white man who tried it, but it was a group of white people who defeated it. So that makes me, because of being the man of color in the middle, absolutely have to say it is not about just color. I'm not going to say it's not about color, but I can say it's not just about color. It's about a lot of other things. It's really, in my opinion, it boils down to the conversation. I feel the same way about what we're here talking about as I do trash bags in the foster system. 40 some years ago, they gave me trash bags, and they're still giving them out. 40 some years ago, 50 with Emmett, 65 years ago, it was happening to Emmett Till. It's still happening today. So the thing about it is, I don't want to look at what we're dealing with as how it pertains to my life. I want to look at what we're dealing with about what I want the future. Do I want them to have, do I really want to see them having these same tired-ass conversations? Because there's always going to be something that needs to be fixed. If there weren't, there would be no reason for the sun to rise. Our journeys are based on our experiences, and our stories are what we leave from our experiences for others to learn, grow, and love with. So all I say is, whatever we do, no man is an island. None of us can fix what took hundreds of years to develop. But what we can do is make sure that our story speaks to our own experiences and our own truths, and also shows at the end of the day, when the period is put on the last word of your story, hopefully it will be something that speaks to unconditional love for all. So that's what I really truly hope for. I want to thank each and every one of you. Thank you for taking time out of your days, Jason. Thank you for coming early, Kim. Thank you for being the only woman. I know that could have been hard. Tim, thank you for all the things you do, and for always bringing those things to the forefront that I would have never known existed in a million years. And Kevin, thank you as the biracial person here, black, born into white, probably more experience than any of us with it. But the thing about it is, it's not how much experience, it's the type of experience. And that's all that we can speak to. We can't say anything about anybody else's. We just have to try to understand it and love unconditionally accordingly. So thank you all very much. God bless you. And I hope to see you here again. Thanks so much.
All.
Doodles.
Thank you. Everybody, I'll see you tomorrow morning for our next installment of Bathrobe Moments. Be good, and remember, you cannot be the blessing if you don't see the blessing.